Hello, everyone. So, for my group, I'm currently in the HANDS program for my 390 placement, and I have come across a lot of refugees who have come from the Congo. So, I thought that I would propose a support group for these women. A lot of them have depression and they have a lack of support within their community just due to not really knowing anybody once they get here. And so I thought it was really important that for the success of those clients that they have somewhere where they can join and actually form new relationships based around their culture that they came from. So let's see. The way that I think this group should be conducted is from the client-centered theory, which I really like this theory. It was by Carl Rogers, and he basically believed that clients should come to their own realizations of treatment that has been influenced by the relationship that they've had with their therapist or their facilitator. So it's a very empowering process, and I think that's important for a group like this, is that they seek to find their own solutions by using each other's relationships in the group. So yeah, the facilitator would be simply there to kind of guide the group and help them maintain their relationships using, empathy, and even the facilitator would have some authenticity in there. And they would play an equal role in each other's success of that group. So the purpose of the group is kind of the same thing. It's just that the members would work together to allow a safe place for them to build a community, and in turn it would help them have somewhere to shoot off some feelings and ideas, give each other resources when they need it, and all around just give them a sense of community that they've been missing since they, fled to the United States for safety. The clients have already been through lots of hardships, and so I think it's important that knowing that they can only be understood through their personal experience or the facilitator having some kind of relevant research that they've put into that. They were torn from the life that they knew, and thrown into this new environment without that social support. So many of these women who are seeking community don't really have a valid source to create this type of group, and it has become an issue that has rendered some of the progress that the HANDS program has tried to throw. And because of their culture as well, mental wellness isn't so much something they look at as, well, I'm depressed because of this and this and that. They look at it more of, well, I'm not feeling socially equipped and I'm not feeling supported, and that's what's making me sad. So a group like this would really help them on their mental health wellness, instead of using the treatments like one-on-one individual therapy that we have in our country that's pretty typical. So I've kind of talked about it, but the agency that I think would deal with this would be the HANDS program. The HANDS program, it was developed, it's a Kentucky program that was developed to help mothers and fathers build healthy and safe environments for their children. They want to help create good growth, positive pregnancy outcomes. They work really hard to help the child's development, and they want healthy and safe home environments, and they would like families to be able to be independent and make healthy decisions. The group itself would help support the program reach these goals with these refugees. The specific place would be the Lexington Hands program through the Family Care Center. I know that there's plenty of refugee clients there that kind of need that support and help because they don't really have it right now. And then as far as funding goes, like right now the HANDS program itself is funded by Medicaid and the Tobacco Settlement Grant, and I've personally seen that they have issues knowing where to channel that funding sometimes. And so if they could propose to Medicaid or the tobacco grants, like, hey, we have this need, is there any way we can put these funds towards this? It would help not only the agency not feel like they're wasting money, but it would in turn help the program get to where it wants to be. Membership and recruitment. Obviously, the specific population would be the refugees who are participating in the HANDS program, because these mothers have concerned their lack of support systems and the lack of community that they've had since migrating to the United States. This type of group would allow those HANDS participants to move beyond their weekly visitations that they have with their FSWs. And the recruitment would actually be through the FSWs. If the FSW seen that there was a need there for that refugee, they would just put in a referral, which also helps their program as well because referrals are important for Medicaid. The group members would need to currently be enrolled in the HANDS program, which means they would have to be either in their pregnancy, anywhere from the child being of 2 years of age once they graduate. So anywhere in between there is fine as long as they're enrolled in that HANDS program. And I also put that they would have to be at least a level 1, which means that they are actively participating in their weekly visits at least 75% of the time. And so the refugee clients that are served at this time in Lexington that I've seen are their African refugees coming from the Congo. I think for the best result, it would be important to pinpoint this type of population because then you could be more culturally competent. In that way, you could also use their specific language instead of trying to say you have a refugee from Syria and then one from the Congo. They're not, I mean, they'd have somewhat of the same experience, but culturally they're in different places. So I would make this group specific to African refugees. And then orientation. So for this group, I think it would be very important that it is an open participation group. So yes, it would have an opening, technically. I mean, you'd have to open the group up and have your introductions. However, I don't think there would be a very consistent lesson going through. The lessons would kind of be random, and the meetings would be kind of random. It would be based on need of that bi-week. But it would be important that when there's new members, that they have a conversation with those new members about the rules. There's paperwork signed about confidentiality. And when they are introduced to the group as an icebreaker, I think it's just important for them to, introduce themselves and maybe name something like their favorite food when joining the group. I think that would connect them on a cultural level, and it would give them a foundation of shared traditions that they could relate to. But yeah, I just feel like the group would be very open, so it wouldn't necessarily be just closed off once they had a certain amount of members. Let's see. And then, like I said, these meetings would take place bi-weekly, which allows, a time for them to have more experiences, to really process what they're going through, to have more material for them to talk about when they do get there, because these members are already participating in their weekly hands meetings. And so I wouldn't want to overwhelm them with way too much intervention at a time. For me, I think this group could continue as long as it needed to, and the members would be exited once they graduated the hands program. It just feels appropriate in that way. And then I feel like the group should be held during the evenings, bi-weekly once, because, they all have kids, so we don't want to overwhelm them too much, and, they might be working during the day, and so on and so forth. Environment, I think that it would be best that they get held in the Lexington Library, in one of their meeting rooms. Members would sit circle style in chairs, and that way they have open communication. They all see each other. Everyone's, being able to face each other and communicate well. And if there were any type of activities that were going to go on, I'm sure we would set up tables for them to sit at and work with their hands and do those activities when necessary. The cost of this group would be free to the participants, just like the hands program is free. It's all billed through Medicaid and that tobacco grant, which if you're doing it in the library, for the most part, those rooms are free as long as they're available at the time. So we would just make sure that the availability was there and that we would have a spot for each of those bi-weekly meetings there. And the only kind of budget concern I would actually have for the members is because they all do have children and they're all mothers, they would probably need some type of child care, and that can be really expensive. And refugees already don't have that much money. So if we really needed to budget anything in, that would probably be the big expense. Just because I feel like the group would run much better without the presence of their children, and it would give them a good break to be themselves and not just be mothers at that point. So I just propose that maybe the children have their own space during these meetings. So because there are multiple rooms within the library, you could have the kids go to another meeting room and possibly have a trusted volunteer or actually hire a person to watch them while the meetings are taking place. I feel like the group itself, other than that, would have very little concerns as far as confidentiality, just because you would do the paperwork beforehand and they would all be aware of the rules before they even stepped foot in their first meeting. And as far as resistance from either side of the agency, it wouldn't be a problem for the agency, nor do I think it would be a problem for the participant, because it's a volunteer. Nobody's being forced to be there. Ethical issues. I think it's very important that the facilitator or co-facilitators of this group understand the importance of their cultural competence with this group, because that is the only way that this group will fully be emerged and work for each other. So that means constantly learning and researching and bringing out their own self-awareness of the culture during these meetings. You have to keep it productive, and they would have to really understand the population that they are trying to help, so that these mothers can not only find support within each other, but they can find support within the group and the facilitator. And a big part of that is finding somebody who can speak their native language, which is Swahili. There are already Swahili speaking social workers within their facility. So if she wanted to be a facilitator, that would be amazing, and she would already be somewhat culturally appropriate for a group like this, because it's important that as social workers we meet that standard of communication and language, and we advocate for our clients and not expect them to use a language that they don't normally speak, especially when we're trying to form a community based around their culture. And then as far as evaluations go, the way that I think it would be important to measure this, because it is a support group and not a treatment group or a task group, is to just know that the meaningful relationships will be there based on like how we see it. The formal evaluations can take place on entry and exit surveys among the participants, while the progress of the group can actually be tracked through FSWs at the weekly meetings of their participants. And that way there can be some kind of communication between the facilitator and the FSW to fully understand what effect the group is having on the member, and if it's helping them at all and they're feeling like they're getting what they need from it. So but that's all I got for you guys, so thanks for watching.